take the red pill, you stay in Wonderland, and I show you how deep the rabbit hole goes.
Is this the real life? Is this just fantasy?
I'm a human being, god damn it! My life has value! It's time to ask yourself what you believe.
Mass murder, torture, perjury, embezzlement, fraud, deception, treason. These are just a few of your many crimes against humanity. You will not win this war, for you are fighting the very essence of humanity.
Hey there, welcome to Truth or Talk. I'm April Bowden.
And I'm Virstyne Henry.
You can visit our website at truthertalk.com. We're airing on UCY TV Sundays 2 Pacific Time and what's that, 5 o'clock Eastern Time. Today is our 100th episode, so we're very excited. You can go on to our website and check out all the episodes we've done.
Oh, 99.
99 of our episodes, and many, many more to come. But yeah, it's 100. I can't believe it.
Yeah. Do you think? Did you think that we were ever going to make it this far?
I can't say I really thought about it. I just kind of I don't think I really thought about it. I just thought we would, when we started, that we were going to do it, and we just keep doing it until we didn't do it anymore. Until something happened and we just, something else came up or whatever. I didn't really even think about it beginning or ending. I just kind of thought we did it and we were going to just do it until I didn't really think of the end either. I just kind of thought, I don't know, it just never really occurred to me.
Yeah, I remember, if I remember correctly, you were like, when we were researching and coming across all this information that was really empowering, and you were like, I want to do a radio show, and I'm like, let's do it! I think initially it was your idea, if I remember correctly. And then,
yeah, go ahead.
And then we just kind of bounced a bunch of ideas off of each other, but yeah, I don't know, I just jumped on, and I've been on ever since, and I haven't wanted to get off, so the ride's been great, Same thing, not really thinking that we'd be doing 100 episodes, and I know that there are other radio shows or podcasts that have done way more in a shorter period of time, but just considering our schedules, considering the fact that April is a mom and a writer and has a lot of other things going on, and she's also homeschooling her kids, and I have my artistic endeavors that I'm working on, that, that we were still able to do 100 episodes, it's like quite an accomplishment. I'm really proud of both of us.
I am too, and it was, when you think about, over the years, we have no guest on our show today because we're going to honor our 100th episode the way that we did our first episode, which was we interviewed each other when we were introducing ourselves to the audience, and so we're not having any guests today, but
we're the guests. Deal with it.
We are our own guests. We'll be interviewing each other, and but just to think of all the guests, most of our shows we've had guests. We've done a few on our own, and we've done a few with our friends Sarah and Liam, who we kind of consider co-hosts. But it's amazing that we've had all these guests on our show, and all these people that when we first started our radio show, we were researching their work or reading their books or things like that, and then they came on, and then we got to know them. We got to actually have them on our show for a while. So, if you go back and look at our archive, it's like, I'm really impressed. I'm really impressed with how much we've done and how much we've actually, the people that we've had on and been able to get to come on our show. Considering that before we were on UCY, we were just on Blog Talk, we weren't we were just doing it ourselves.
Yeah.
Yeah, I know, right? It's like,
actually, we were paying like $4 a month to do our show.
Yep, we were, and then we switched. I think we were trying to kind of find a different outlet from Blog Talk, and something that was a little less expensive, and then we were kind of getting annoyed with them because they seemed to be messing with our numbers. They were trying to mess with we had a certain number of listeners, and they were sort of fudging our numbers, were going up and down, and it's weird stuff. And we were like, what are they doing to us? Why are they messing with us right here? And then when we get back, let's go ahead and dive right into our interviews. You want to go first?
Yeah, I got my questions ready.
I'm in for it. All right, sounds good. Okay, so everybody stay with us. We're going to take a quick break, and then we're going to come back and do our interview. So stay with us.
Everything I'm looking at seems crazy. The newspaper, the television, nothing's right. Nothing's telling me what's true. It's like I fell into a bucket of cream and kicked my legs until I became a mouse. What's that about? I'm a conspiracy realist, not a conspiracy theorist. I want a t-shirt that represents me. What? There's one that's available? Go to shop.truthertease.com, says the voice in my head. Shop.truthertease.com. It's not crazy. I'm not afraid to go on the internet and go to shop.truthertease.com. I'm not scared. I've taken out bowling balls that look like you. That's what I said. Straighten out. Get your conspiracy realist t-shirt. Don't make me come over there. You look good.
Welcome back, y'all.
You look good.
You're listening to Truth or Talk. Thanks for hanging with us. This is our 100th episode. And my guest on today's show is Miss Virstyne Henry.
And my guest is April Bowden. I'm going to be interviewing April Bowden today. So, are you ready?
I'm ready.
All right, here it comes. You better get your talking shoes on. I don't know what the hell are the talking shoes. I've
never heard that one before, but okay.
All right. So
I have them on.
So during our intro segment, we talked a little bit about like how initially we were bouncing ideas off of each other, and you're the one that just came up with the idea of doing a radio show. And you know, why did you? Why did you? What made you interested in wanting to do a radio show? If you can remember, I know it was a while ago.
No, I remember. It was because we were spending like 5 hours talking, you know, about all of these things almost every day. You know, you were living in Taiwan, and we would Skype, and we were both kind of coming into all this information at the same time. And it just seemed like a natural progression, you know, because we were starting off with like, oh my God, did you hear about these chemtrail things? And oh my God, did you blah, 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 blah. And it just was, I saw a lot of people were doing, or I was, you know, listening to podcasts and radio shows at that time. I barely do anymore just because I don't have the time anymore. But back then, I would put them on my MP3 player and I'd walk around the house and I'd clean up, and I thought, you know, we can do this. There isn't like any real trick to it, you know. And it's kind of what we're already doing by just talking about all of these things that we're learning about every day, and I'm sharing information with you and vice versa. So it just seemed like a natural progression from what we were already doing. So I thought, let's share this information that we have. Let's share this information that we're accumulating and put it out there. And also just because I didn't like, I felt like I wanted to do something. I didn't know exactly what. It was one of these things where I just, once you come into this knowledge, you don't want to just sit around being idle and kind of just going, well, I knew that the police state was coming. It's like, well, what did you do about it? Where were you when this happened? What, you know, it just kind of seemed like there had to be something that I could do other than just sit around and listen to other people just talk about it, you know, and get mad and put mad posts on Facebook. It just didn't satisfy me. So.
Yeah, you know, so I'm just curious, do you feel that pull, or did you feel that pull to actually do something more than just sit around and consume the information that you were getting because you have children? Because I definitely would say I felt an impulse to spread this information or share this information because just being a teacher, you know, and looking at the children that I taught and thinking about the future and what was coming, and thinking about, you know, that I have to at least try and do something, you know.
I did, because I thought I didn't want there to be a time where, you know, who knows what the future would hold. But I wanted to be able to say to my kids at some point in their lives, like if they said, well, when you saw these things going down, when you saw the police state rolling in, what did you do about it? And I wasn't just like, oh, well, I was on Facebook. You know what I mean? I wanted to be able to say, well, you know, I researched and I did hours of work and I put this information out there on a podcast. I had kids. I wasn't able to start marching in the street, but I was able to do what I could do. And what I tried to do was take things that I thought maybe I had a talent for, which was, we were both in theater, and we were in, we did entertainment, and I was, felt that I was a good writer, and I could take those things and put them to use, and that it would, in order to, empower people, and in order to get, and just empower myself, and to try and become part of the solution. I definitely felt that was the case. I definitely felt that there wasn't, I didn't believe in the logic of, what's the saying, raising well-adjusted kids in an ill-adjusted, or, in a sick society. So I wanted to not be a part of the sick society, in some way take a stance that, I wasn't involved in this, or that I was complicit in it at one point, but now I've become aware, and now I'm trying to rectify the situation however I can. And so I've always done my best to not only do the show and talk about these things, but also live that in my own life.
Yeah, and it's hard, right? It's a huge paradigm shift. It's a huge way of looking at things. You really have to forgive yourself for a lot of stuff. It's really hard. It's a really internal process. It's a huge internal process. I was listening. This is somebody that we've added to our list of people that we would like to have on. But I was listening to Dr. Nancy Banks the other day, and she was talking about, like, people talk about this being an information war, but at the end of the day, she really feels that it's a spiritual war. Which I would agree. Even if you consider yourself an atheist, I mean, I think it involves a lot of introspection to be able to admit that that you've been duped and bamboozled. It also requires a lot of forgiveness of yourself, if you can even do that, because sometimes that's still hard for some people to do. But I would just say, just the amount of introspection that you have to have that changes your paradigm is huge, and it not only changes you as it not only changes the way that you see the world, but it also changes how you see yourself in the world. Yeah.
Well, that's really well said, and it's funny because I was actually just thinking about that today or yesterday. Just a little while ago, I had these ideas about how, how we've been talking a lot lately about people with personality disorders like narcissism, or, these issues. And it seems that they're very devoid of a spiritual life. You know what I mean? And it's like even though we think we've gotten away from these oppressive religions, I think the thing that we've taken, the downside of that is that people not being a part of a religion are very devoid in spirituality. There's kind of like this, this spiritual, like our whole society is very spiritually bankrupt at the moment. Mm-hmm. That they've taken on the new religion, which they call science, and they believe in that, but it's like, there's not a lot of thought given into the whole idea of body, mind, and spirit. Everything is... Or just
compassion and common sense. It seems to go with that.
Right,
it's like they're turning into like cyborgs.
Precisely.
Yeah,
precisely.
Because even, just what amazed me at first, I think, was... when you were outspoken about what happened to your son and you would blog about it, just the amount of mean-spirited people that would come and just be like, well, you're a liar, and that's anecdotal evidence, and blah, blah, blah. And, just the fact that their first instinct is to attack you and yell at you instead of really trying to figure out where you're coming from, And I think, a lot of people that are science worshipers that are very kind of seem to have this idea that humans are awful people, that they don't have the best interest of other humans in mind. So I feel like I think that human beings are good, and we do horrible things, but we've been made to do so. Whereas they think that human beings are just innately horrible or stupid people, and their first instinct when somebody something awful happens to somebody, or somebody says that they were vaccine injured or whatever, is to attack them instead of really trying to even you can go about in a very nice way to figure out if somebody's telling the truth without just attacking them,
right,
and seeing what their intentions are. And and if they were really into science like they claim they were, they would know that there's actually more science against vaccination than there is for vaccination.
Right, but there's this very, and we've talked about this a lot on our show, that especially on the social networking, there's this sincere lack of empathy, lack of they just kind of come on and attack and don't really, in such a way that, they wouldn't do if they were looking right at you, or probably not. But it's very desensitized. It's like you're talking to somebody who's vaccine injured or has a vaccine injured child, and you're treating them as if they're not a real person.
Yeah.
As if as if they didn't really go through that, or they didn't really say the things that they're saying are not real, even if they can tell that they are. Even if they seem like that. Here, this well video that I did with Aiden. I mean, they can tell, that I'm telling the truth because he was in the video with me, and it's a video that's a minute and a half long, and all I'm doing is saying that he was vaccine injured. And we got so many horrible responses to that on YouTube, so many people that were saying such mean and nasty things and calling me names that, I just ended up disabling the comments, because it's just, at that point, one of the guys was like a gang stalker, or there was a couple of them that were like gang stalking that were just going on all of our videos and trying to comment on everything. So I just had to block those guys because they were creepy, and then disable the comments. And I've had to pretty much take on the habit of disabling all the comments on anything we do about vaccines, especially if we say that we have family members or we know somebody who's vaccine injured, because that, for some reason, is what they attack the most. And they just don't treat you as if you're real, like there's another person on the end of it. They somehow just, I don't know. It's this very spiritually bankrupt society at the moment. You know what, though? I'm going to start asking for, I'm going to start saying that people that say they had polio and smallpox, that's anecdotal evidence. I'm going to start asking for proof of that, Good one, yeah. Hypocrisy, because we believe all of these things, about, that vaccines save lives, as the famous catchphrase that everybody likes to use. Vaccine saves lives, but, we never ask for any evidence of it. Yeah, Right, and there is no evidence. That's the thing. So if you do ask for evidence, they just attack you. They don't actually provide you evidence. They just attack you. And that's their biggest telltale that they're full of crap, is because the fact that they can't provide you anything concrete, all they can do is attack. And ad hominem attacks, yeah. Ad hominem attacks, and then and really ugly and really nasty, just for asking a question or just for making a statement, and it's pretty, it's pretty bad out there. So I've taken on the thing, especially on YouTube. I don't know what that is about YouTube, but YouTube, we get the most diabolical, nasty comments. And occasionally I would respond, but I've pretty much taken to disabling them, because it's so bizarre how people respond. But I think there is like you're talking about the spiritual war, for sure. It's a spiritual war, because there's people that still have some soul and some spirit, and then there's some who seemingly don't. It's kind of, missing in their lives. Yeah. Not apparently absent. And and the thing about that is too, because I have a really good friend of mine, and he was like, I was upset by certain people that would attack me and stuff for just saying what I thought, because I wasn't going on their websites, even though I disagree with people that are pro-vax. I think I have. I'll take that back. I think when I first started, I have, but only when they were attacking you or somebody else. I would really go on to defend, defend people, but I wasn't spending a huge majority of my time seeking out sites that were pro-vax and attacking those people, and calling them names and stuff. Because I also realized that I was that person for a while. Mm-hmm. I was very, 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 not very pro-vax, but I was very, there was a part of my life where I just couldn't imagine why parents didn't vaccinate their children. But I was like, to each his own.
whatever. You know what I mean? Because at least I had the common sense to know that I wasn't in danger because I got my vaccination. So I don't even know like how it just baffles me how people have been able to pull the wool over other people's eyes and make them scared that, even though they've gotten their vaccination, they're still in danger because everybody needs to be vaccinated in order for it to work. It's just ridiculous,
Yeah.
So, okay, so number 2. Well, yeah. What are some of the most embarrassing moments that you can think of that has happened so far?
On the show?
Mm-hmm.
Oh, embarrassing on the show. Gosh. I don't really remember anything that was embarrassing, to be honest. I don't know. I can't think of any time that I really felt
really embarrassed
on the show.
Were you nervous about anybody?
I was nervous always kind of in the beginning. I remember even being nervous when we interviewed Liam because he was one of our first interviews, and he is my friend, but I remember being nervous because I think it was like our second or third interview, and he had just written his book, and I wanted to seem like and I had read the book, but I wanted to make it come across to the audience that I knew what I was talking about, so I didn't, so I felt a little nervous. But, I got over that real quick. And there's been times where we've interviewed people that I had a little bit of nervousness. Like I was a little nervous when we interviewed Jim Mars because he's so famous.
Oh, but he was so chill.
He was so right. It went away like in a second.
Yeah.
It was really because he was so chill and he was so cute. And even during like our sound test, he was like, what did he say? Earth to Mars. Like that's what he said into the mic for the sound check, and he said Earth to Mars. It was just so cute, and he was just very warm and and delightful. So that went away in a second, and then but I was a little nervous just because he was so famous. And let me see, anybody else? Probably Rob Schneider. Oh,
I was nervous also.
Yeah, that was, and then that one I was. Oh, that was probably the most embarrassing moment because we were having technical difficulties. But the biggest celebrity we've ever had. This guy's been in,
mainstream
mainstream Saturday Night Live alumni. Adam Sandler's best friend in all of his movies. He's the animal guy. He's the, what was he? The Gigolo. Anyway, he's been in all these characters, and we interviewed him, and we were having sound trouble and nothing but problems with our recording system, and it was just doing all these weird things, and we were like, oh my god, we're going to lose him. He's not going to, we can't fix this issue.
And I think we recorded for 10, or we thought we were recording for 10 minutes, and then we
couldn't
pick up like everything. We had to stop and start all over again, and then I just had to end up bowing out. I'm not really in that interview for the interview with him because it was technical difficulties from my end, so I was just like, April, why don't you interview him? I'll just bow out, and call me back and let me know how it went. And I was so embarrassed, and I was so bummed because I wanted to talk to him more, But he was a sweetheart too. He was definitely really chill and,
No, we thought we were going to have to interview him because he was going away on a trip to Chicago the next day.
Oh, yeah.
And so we thought, oh, no, we've lost it. We've lost the interview because we couldn't fix it. And the guy talked for 10 minutes, and then we had to cut him off and say, yeah, none of that recorded. And, it was just embarrassing. But he was real nice, and he was real patient. And then what happened was I'd sent a message to his publicist or whoever was handling his schedule, and I said, we'll have to reschedule him because we're having these technical problems. And so he said, oh, he'll do it when he comes back from Chicago. And I was like, oh, that's it. And then I said, well, you told me go ahead and just do it with him if you can get it done today. Just go ahead and do it. So I said, well, I can do it right now, because you had to go to work or something. Yeah. And so I told him I can do it right now. And he says, yeah, he's available. He says he can call you right now. So I just did it right then and there all by myself, and I had really no prepared questions or anything, but I knew the issue pretty well. And obviously we were talking about vaccines, and he blew me away with how smart he was and how much he knew about vaccines. I was like, oh, my God.
Yeah.
Because I thought, him being a major celebrity, he would be like these middle-of-the-road people that had kind of this well, I'm not anti-vax.
Oh, I hate that shit. Right. even though, you know what, though? I guess there was a point I could say I was there, too.
Right.
But,
yeah. So that's what most of these celebrities say, and it's like, you know.
But I think they're saying that because they're covering their ass too.
Precisely, but he didn't cover his ass at all. He was just like, no, this shit's dangerous. You know, they shouldn't. I mean, he's like, let me tell you something, April. You know, these things are dangerous. And I was like, yeah, I have a vaccine as your child. And then he was really sweet, and he was, you know, and very empathetic and responsive, and he was great. But yes, I was totally embarrassed that we had technical problems. I was very nervous. I had to do the interview by myself, and I didn't want to because I was like, oh my God, I'm so embarrassed. I'm so like nervous that I wanted the backup, but it was so yeah. There you go. Now that was my most embarrassing and most nerve-wracking time.
Okay, so now what was your most enlightening episode thus far?
Well, this might be. I might have some bias on this because this is a more recent interview, but I think the one with Jeanice Barcelo was a pretty enlightening one, because I really just her work in general about birth trauma and about emotional trauma, and how her comparing the birth trauma situation to basically how the MK Ultra programs work in this trauma-based mind control system was like, wow. I mean, that was kind of a huge connection that I didn't see before, and so that was one that was pretty enlightening to me. I'd say I really enjoyed or was enlightened by the interview we did with Gwen Olsen, because I was shocked to see how alert and aware she was.
Oh, I remember that.
Yeah.
Because I remember us talking before, and we're just like, all right, like we're just going to stick to vaccine. I mean, no, not vaccine. We're just going to stick to the pharmaceutical industry. We're not going to talk about eugenics or all the other stuff. You don't want to like freak her out or,
right,
you know, and then she just started going off. We were just like, dang, man. We were surprised that she was awake about the deeper situation as she was, because we also respect that, you know, when we have our guest on our show, that we don't, you know, they don't have to agree with everything that we agree with, and we're not going to force our ideals on them. And some people only kind of research to a point, and they don't go that deep, you know, so we respect that. But yeah, I remember that.
Right. Yeah, and it was that was a big one for me. And then also I'd say that the other one was Chris Wark from Chris Beat Cancer.
One of my
that was our first episode on cancer, and he came on, and we were going to do this show about cancer, and we came on with this guy who was funny and light, and it ended up being this interview where we were laughing the whole time and having this really good time talking about cancer. It really reduced my fear of cancer. Then suddenly I walked away from that interview, and I've never come back to that. I've never, ever since then, I've had this this weight lifted where I just don't fear it like I used to. I mean, not to say that
extremely well said, because I would say that that's one of my episodes for sure. I'm sorry, go on.
I was just saying it was huge. Go ahead.
Just because cancer affects everybody. Like everybody knows somebody at this point that has had cancer, or they've had cancer themselves, or that has died of cancer. You know.
And it's even, and I remember like taking notes when he was talking about, because I was like, even the things that he was saying were applicable to dealing with my son Aiden, even though my son has autism, but it's basically all an immune system problem, you know, and I saw that as like, well, cancer, autism are connected. These things are all connected because it's all basically about the immune system. So that was a huge one for me. And then, of course, Sarah Sarah Sotomayor, who's also one of our first interviews, and it was one of the interviews that I felt the most emotionally. She drew out a lot of emotion or empathy that I had for her situation, because she described herself so well, like having gone through the vaccine injury at the age of 13, and then she could remember everything that they put her through after that, which was basically like a medical nightmare. You'd think she was like in the medieval times, and they were like torturing her. I mean, it was just so bizarre, but it was also very heartfelt. You know, I felt for this child, you know, and she's a grown woman now, but I mean, at the time when she was describing back what happened to her when she was young, and then losing her ability to walk, and her parents having to carry her like a baby, and all these things, just, I mean, it really, like, even now, bringing it up, I feel emotional, and I get kind of chills, and then thinking about it, because it was just, it was someone's personal story. So I think lot of the personal stories have the most impact, I guess, on my soul, because then it pulls these feelings of sympathy and empathy, and kind of then I feel I'm just changed by that. And definitely she changed. She's just been a huge had a huge impact on our show and on me personally, and I think probably as well. And she's our friend now, but at the time we just met her.
Yeah.
And I just wanted so badly to help her and fix, I just didn't, it just hurt me personally to hear her tell her story. Yeah. And I wanted those people to pay.
Yeah, I was so angry.
Bigger,
for sure.
Yeah, it invoked a lot of feelings. So there's been, I could probably go on, but those are some of the big ones, I would say.
I was actually surprised too when Gwen told us a story about her niece, because I kind of knew that by reading her book, but I didn't expect her to talk about it on the show, because I can imagine every time she talks about her niece, it just, she relives it,
Yeah.
And for people who haven't listened to the episode of Gwen Olsen, you can go to our website, you can type in, do a search for Gwen Olsen, but she was a pharmaceutical rep, and she was actually aware of, the debauchery, I don't know if debauchery is the right word, that was going on in the pharmaceutical industry, because she would have meetings and they were talking about that, in a few years that they would want to have everybody on the planet hooked on at least 2 medicines. Dependent on at least 2 medications.
Yeah.
And, and she was making a lot of money. She's very knowledgeable, super smart. And then she watched basically her niece, who was like a straight A student, who they had a really, tight relationship with. Basically she got into a car accident, then was put on painkillers, and those painkillers led to other medications that she needed to be put on. Eventually she had to be put on antidepressants, and then from the antidepressants she had to be put on antipsychotics, and then she eventually ended up setting herself on fire. Like with an oil lamp. She threw an oil lamp on herself, so she purposely set herself on fire. And, that was just so disturbing to me, and,
yeah.
I didn't expect her to talk about it, She said, I don't know, I guess she felt comfortable around us, because she said even when she goes and does public speaking, she doesn't really talk about it. She has like she already has it recorded, and she talks about it in the recording, and then she comes out. She doesn't, talk about it, so.
Right, and I think she did feel comfortable with us, because she knew about my son Aiden with his vaccine injury, and I that surprised me too.
Oh, yeah.
I remember after the show, she was like, I had a long list of people that have that asked me to be interviewed, but I put you guys in the front. And she said, I have actually read about you and your son, and I know the situation. And I was like, wow, really? Like, because, even still, years later, it always surprises me when people come to me and say, I've read your blog, or I know your story, or I know these things. I go, really? You do? Like, oh, okay. But, to have her say that, and who I'd seen on Alex Jones, and I'd seen her on all these big interviews, really shocked me, really surprised me. And but I think that was one of the reasons that she felt comfortable talking about it. And but it was very hard. It was very emotional. I remember we both cried. Through both those interviews that we're just talking about, the one with Gwen and the one with Sarah, we were both bawling, and we couldn't, it was very emotional for us. And we were moved by their vulnerability and their ability to talk about that, and their ability to get into those very, very difficult stories. It's the only way I can describe it. Just good ones. I'm sure I could come up with more, but that we don't want to go on forever. I'd be like, all of them, all 100 episodes.
Yeah, I was going to ask you who was the most intimidating guest that you had, but we kind of went over that before. So who do you think was the funniest? Or maybe you said that already too. Who the funniest was?
Well, Liam's the funniest. Liam's always so funny. Chris Work was definitely fun, and but when Liam and I did that show, that one of our earlier shows, you were, I think, busy at the time. You were maybe coming back from Taiwan.
Yeah.
And so he and I did a couple shows on our own, and we did Ginger Balls. Remember Ginger Balls?
Yes.
And so, without a doubt, Liam's a comedian at heart. He does all this investigative work, but really that's his calling, is his sense of humor and his he does these impressions and things like that. And so,
but you know what, Liam is he's a really good investigative journalist too. I think though, because he has such a big heart, it probably hurts him to come across a lot of the stuff that he's researched, because he's really sensitive in the sense that he really cares a lot about people. But he also just has, I think he's really gifted at taking information, nonfiction information, and making it, what's the word? I'm going to say palatable or funny. I would just say funny. But he does a way of simplifying it but still in a very intellectual way while making it funny, if that makes sense. I don't really know anybody that can do that as well as he can.
Right, absolutely. So it was, without a doubt, every time we've had him on, he's always funny, and at different points, because he's just naturally that way, even if he's not trying to be. But in that, that was those episodes that he and I did, and then you did a couple with us as well, where he was doing the impressions. And those are just so much fun.
And you guys work so well together. I'm just like kind of lame when it comes to that stuff. I'm like, I'm a smart ass. I could be smart. No, but I'm not like, whining about it. I think as a person that was there, I felt more comfortable as an audience member, because I was being entertained. Like I was about to say something, I was just going to go to you guys and what? It's my turn. Oh, okay. So we do have a good straight man, funny man kind of thing, because he would just say these outrageous things. I just go, all right, well, and I just roll with it and ask the questions, because we did the Ginger Balls episode, and then he did another one as Woody E. Allen, and Ron Paul. I don't want to give them all away. I guess it's been a long time now, and everybody it probably knows, but because he would always say, well, don't give it away, and I'm like, but really, do they really? By now those episodes have already been played probably a couple of times, so I don't think anyone doesn't know that those are him. Like, oh, really?
So that would be, but he's hilarious, and he's a very good friend. So.
So what are some of the things that you would want to make better about the show, and would you want to extend or add the show to make it more different, or different?
To make the show better, I'd like to. I know we talked in the beginning on the intro about how we run this show on our own schedule, and that's been good for us as far as working endeavors and things like that. But I do like live radio, and I do like being able to take calls and things like that. So that is something I'd like to do. I do that when I go on other people's shows, and I enjoy that spontaneity, and I enjoy that not knowing what the person's going to ask you and being on the spot. It's kind of fun, kind of exciting. And and then just probably, technical things, not really anything, not change too much, but just a little, get a little tighter as far as our sound and things like that. We've had trouble in the past, but it's hard. I have kids, and a lot of times that's what causes the noise issues in the background. But, little things like that I think we could improve upon. And then, of course, there's just never enough time to get to all the people that we want to interview. So we have this huge, long list of everybody that we'd love to interview. And if we did a show every day, we'd be able to get through them, but we just don't have the time to do that, so it takes a while. But
maybe we can do something where we can do a live show, like a special live broadcast every once in a while. Maybe we can do something like that. That's what you know what I mean? We can just set it there, and we can really just it'll probably be a lot of planning on both of our ends because of our schedule. We maybe every once in a while we can do a live show.
Yeah.
If that's something you would want to do in the future. It actually, honestly, it makes me a little nervous, but I'll get over it. And I do like talking to people. I would like to talk to people and hear what they say and have people call in. We kind of do observing, in the chat room that they have on UCY TV. Which, April, you're a little bit more active than I am. I'm just working. It's not that I don't care, but I'm just working. You know. So,
sure,
but I mean that can get exciting at times. You know, we have our little troll and that comes and haunts us.
Right. Yeah, but it's just nice to get that instant feedback. I guess you just get kind of that. It's fun, and I've been on other people's shows before, and I've had people call in and ask me questions, and I just kind of enjoy that. I just kind of, speaking of Liam, one time I was on Liam's old radio show, and we had a caller, but he screened his call, so during the commercial break, he picked up the call, and the guy was kind of like belligerent or whatever, and Liam was just like, okay, yeah, all right. Well, thank you for calling, and then he just hung up on the guy, and then after he hung up on the guy, he's like, okay, sounds drunk, you know. It was just this, but it's that kind of thing, like you don't know if the person's going to call and be drunk, you don't know. It just can be, some of that stuff can be very funny. I guess it goes back to my theater days with improv and all of that. You don't necessarily know. You can start with one idea, and then by the end of it, it's something completely different. It comes out of it, and I like that. I guess that nervous energy a little bit. There's something kind of a thrill about it, like a roller coaster. So I
think it's true creativity, though, when something isn't so controlled, you know, and kind of let go, whatever that is, whatever medium you were creating in, you know, to have some spontaneity, whether you're painting or doing music or interviewing, whatever. It just, you know, you can always end up with something even better than you could have even imagined. You know, that's the thing that's great about that. So,
right. So I mean, there's a lot of things I'm sure, but I mean, given the time that we have to do it and the constraints of our lives and all that, I think we've done pretty good at fulfilling. So my advice would be just don't think too much about it. Don't just go ahead and get started. You know, if you have an idea and you think that you have a voice and you have some people that you'd like to interview, you know, just kind of jot that information down, journal it, and then get a spot on Blog Talk. You can get one for free, 30 minutes a day. If you want to do it longer, you can pay a small fee, but if you don't, if you want to just start off and you don't want to pay anything, you can do it, you know, 30 minutes at a time, and just start doing it and start messing around with it. That's what I would advise people to do. And just everybody has something to offer, and everybody has a voice. I think that's what would be my advice.
Yeah, I would also say just ask everybody you want, because that's what we did. You know what I mean? Now that I think about it, we were kind of brazen in doing that, but at the same time, that's how we did. You know, because we didn't even think about it. We're like, okay, we asked this person, and most people, like 90% of people said yes.
Right.
And I think
go ahead.
I think a lot of people too, if they see that you're serious and you're somewhat organized, and you know they have ideas that they want to get out, then I think most likely, you know, you would be probably pretty successful. You'll be surprised. You know, just don't think about it. And if they tell you no, they tell you no, and go on to the next person. Somebody's going to tell you yes.
Right. And then after a while, you start running a show, and then people start asking to be on your show.
Yeah.
And then you start getting people who want to promote whatever it is that they're working on, or, you know, if they've written a book, or you know, they're a musician and they have a CD they want to put out or something like that, they start asking you. And so we've had quite a few people that we've had on our show who came to us, and in some cases, I mean, we've always been pretty impressed with, like, the people who've come to us. It's never been like, I don't want to interview that person. They've all been really great.
Yeah.
They've all been really great.
They've taught us a lot too, as well.
Yeah. So we get, you know, and I certainly like to support anyone who's trying to put something out there. If they have an artistic talent, or they have a good eye for geopolitics, or whatever their niche is, it's fine. And I kind of embrace it all, but I'm certainly willing to have anybody on the show. If they have something they want to share, then just let us know, and we'll probably say yes. So we usually get yeses, and we usually say yes in return when people want to be on our show. So,
but like we said, it takes a while because we're just busy.
Because we're busy. So sometimes someone will ask to be on our show, and we'll say yes, and then we might not have them on for 6 months. And I think in some cases it took like a year. Yeah. But but eventually we'll get to it, and we'll do the best we can to have people on. And sometimes, we prioritize things that are happening in the here and now, things that are current events. So then we'll put other people that might be on the list, we'll kind of push them back for a little bit just so we can address certain things. But, that would be the advice. Just don't be afraid. Just ask anybody. Just go, and just start talking. Just start doing a show. And if you have a friend, if you have a partner, just do something. Write a blog. Write whatever it is that whatever talent you might have, and, just give it a whirl. It's not going to hurt anything.
Yeah. How have you improved as a radio host, and what are some things that you can work on?
I think that I've improved a lot. I went, actually, in preparation of this 100th episode, I went back and listened to our first episode, and it was good. But I think that I'm better at talking off the cuff, which I didn't really do very well just then, but ironically. But I think I'm better at that now. I can just talk without having prepared questions, without having to worry about all those things, and kind of be in the moment and think of, sometimes you have prepared questions and then somebody comes on, you ask them one of those questions, and then all of a sudden it just takes off, and you start, the things that they're saying inspire you to ask other things, and you just kind of roll with it. Mm-hmm. So I think I've improved with that. I think I speak with more confidence now. I don't, like we said at the beginning, I don't disclaimer things anymore. I'm pretty confident about the research that I've done, so I can just put the information out there without being apologetic about it. Things that I can improve upon, I just, it's more like, I'm sure that there's a lot of things I could improve upon. I could probably get even better at all that and be even more, even though I do enjoy spontaneity, be a little more organized at times, be a little less kind of, just more sharp with my use of language, more sharp with my words, and probably fix a lot of the technical things, sound issues, and to get better at editing and things like that. But I didn't know how to do any of that beforehand, so I had to learn all that from scratch.
Oh, for sure. Who's a gifted radio interview host we always talk about is, and I'm posing this question to the audience, but Abe and I always talk about Vinny Eastwood. I'm just astounded by how, able he's just off to, how good he is at talking off the cuff. And, he even said he doesn't really do any research. He's just familiar with the person's work, and then he just asks them questions. Yeah, off the cuff. I'm like, damn, Vinny, I hate you. Yeah, that's true. Kidding. We don't hate Vinny Eastwood at all.
No,
and he was pretty funny too.
He was really funny. We had him on. We spent like 4 hours with Vinny Eastwood because we asked him to be on our show, and we conducted an hour interview with him. And then right after that, he was like, I don't have a guest. Do you guys want to come on my show? And we said, okay.
I said, hell yeah. You said, okay.
We said, okay, how, well, we were kind of like, it was at the end of the day. I think he was our third interview of the day.
I was really packed.
We had one of these really long days, and we had been, just recording, and we'd had our headset on since 10 in the morning, and it was like 4 o'clock in the afternoon. And he goes, we were like, well, how long is it? And he says, it's 3 hours. And we were like, what? No. And so we go, and he goes, no, okay, well, how about like an hour and a half, 2 hours maybe? And we go, all right. And then sure enough, we went on the interview, and he just kept us on. He didn't let us go. So we ended up doing the full 3 hours. And then by the end of it, he was like, I've tricked you.
He's like, I tricked you. I have a really bad New Zealand accent, but yeah.
So he was definitely really cute, and but yeah, he was good like that because he just, we
had a lot of fun though. We were tired as hell, but we had a lot of fun.
Right, and I was really, really glad to have done a big show like that. But it was, he is good like that because he didn't even know us really, and then all of a sudden he's conducting a 3-hour interview with us. So yeah, talk about off the cuff.
Yeah, for sure. So, what have you learned about the awakening process that you didn't know when you started this show?
I think a couple of things. I think that in the beginning, I was still kind of believing in somewhat of a system. Maybe I still kind of had some faith in the Constitution, or I had some faith in maybe there was some hope of restoring a promising government. I think I was pretty much over government, but I probably still voted a couple of times after we started, maybe just once, I don't really remember, but I think there was some faith that maybe there was a possibility within the system. I didn't know about the natural law yet. That was something I didn't learn until about a year and a half into the radio show. So that was one thing. I didn't know about basically, all these legal documents and how they bind you to the state. So that was a paradigm shift. I didn't, and I think that I didn't recognize, I thought that people just needed to have information, and that once you gave them information that could be verifiable or that they could see was correct or true, that they would just wake up, that it would just kind of logically, they would say, oh, I see, you're presenting this. I just thought people just didn't know. They weren't waking up because they just didn't know this stuff. They didn't know history. They didn't know these things that had happened. So maybe if you just told them that this is what happened, that they would wake up. And but what I realized was that it didn't work out. It didn't work like that at all. That people had emotional blocks to seeing things that are real, not because you're not presenting the information, or not because it isn't logical, but because they just don't want to see it because it's emotionally painful for them for some reason, or they just are blocked somehow from seeing it.
Blocked because they're assholes and full of shit? Blocked full of shit, maybe?
Sometimes that's the case, and then sometimes it isn't. It isn't necessarily people who are judgmental or cruel or or assholes, but just people who are blocked by fear. They don't. We talked about before on the show that friend that I had who went ahead and vaccinated her daughter, even though she knows a lot of people who, and she works with kids who are vaccine injured. And, and she said that she heard both sides of the story, parents who do vaccinate and they do the research and then those who don't. And then she kind of just says, well, I just put my faith in God. And, she's a very good person. She's a very kind, sweet, loving person. She's not an asshole in any way, but she just is blinded by, she's so afraid. And I could see it in her, I could sense it in her. And so there's this block from letting go, and just, letting go and going, I have faith in myself. I have faith in, my own health and my own immune system, or I have faith in whatever, Go ahead.
That's a really good point. But do you also think that it also, going back to the thing, because we were talking about how it's a spiritual war, that also people are just afraid to stick up for themselves because they don't want other people. They'd rather vaccinate their child and possibly give them an injury as opposed to, standing up for themselves and having people calling them weird,
Yeah.
Which is really sad to me. I've noticed that this whole kind of like high school mentality, it really doesn't end when you're in adulthood. You're still trying to be with the in crowd and follow follow the cool people that are mainstream. It never goes away, And it's also kind of a maturity thing too, I think, to be able to break away from that and just kind of, follow your instinct and do what you feel is right. Because I've even had grown, adults. I had this one lady, she saw my post and she was like, oh, I wish you'd come and post on my wall. And I was like, oh, well, you can take anything off my wall and post it on your wall. Like, that's not a problem, And she was like, oh, yeah, well, I just don't want my family to be mad at me for posting this stuff. And I was just like, well, what, you want them to be mad at me? Right. But you're an adult. Like, you need to be adult and you need to stand up for yourself and, stand up for what's right. Because there really is going to be a day when it's coming to this point where people are going to really face the judgment. I'm not saying judgment in terms of necessarily like the Bible judgment day, but I think judgment days are coming. Look at how they're forcing this SB 277 bill in California, and people are they're at a crossroads. Are they gonna vaccinate their children knowing how dangerous vaccines are just so they can go to school or people won't think they're weird, or are you going to homeschool your kid or be outspoken? It's the choices for those types of people that have been trying to put it off for so long. It's going to become even harder for them because they're going to be backed up against a wall. And sadly to say, I still think that there's some people that are going to vaccinate their children because they don't have the courage or the I don't know what have you to stand up, and they're going to they're going to have to be responsible for any mistakes they make after that.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and everybody lives in, this is a term I just heard not that long ago, but it's a reality tunnel. So their reality is sort of within this tunnel that they see only what they want to see. And so a lot of times, even if you may not trust the vaccine industry or you may not trust, they still don't think that the damage is going to happen to them or it's going to happen to their child. They have this sort of like dreamy fantasy reality, and don't ever think that it's possible. Well, it's not going to be me. It's not. We don't have a genetic predisposition. We don't have a da-da-da-da-da.
So everybody thinks that, though. That's the thing.
Everybody thinks that,
yeah.
and the thing is everybody's sick right now. So obviously everybody's got a problem, whether it's vaccines or, it's Monsanto's glyphosate or GMOs or what have you, or chemtrail. I'm not here to determine the cause of everybody's illness, but I think that, nobody thinks that it's going to happen to them, and but yet everybody's sick. So you tell me.
And we're not only talking autism. We're talking allergies, fibromyalgia,
right.
emphysema, epilepsy,
yes, exactly.
Arthritis, diabetes, obesity, cancer,
heart disease.
All this stuff.
Respiratory disorder. Just all in all. And you see, and even just people that are just unwell. It's like it's not even that they have anything that you could label or diagnose.
They're sick all the time, right?
Right, they're sick all the time. They're tired, or food
Yeah.
affects them weird, or they have, they always have a stomach ache, or they always have migraines, or just all this weird stuff. It's like they're just a little they're not living up to their potential. And I think that most everybody right now is crippled. They're not just, it's not that everyone is just out and out sick, and that's what people will say. Well, not everybody who gets vaccines get vaccine injury. Yes, they do. Yeah. It's impossible to have it and not. And that's the thing that, I probably shifted in believing from when I first started this, because I hadn't gone down the research rabbit hole enough to recognize that everybody who gets a vaccine is sick. At first I thought, well, maybe certain people did, and then it was kind of like, oh, well, people with autism or asthma or allergies or ADHD or da-da-da-da-da, and then I got deeper and deeper, and it was like, oh, okay, I see. Everybody's sick. Everybody's a little bit unwell. No one's really living to their potential. So, and we don't really know, because these things were invented 100 years ago, over 100 years ago, so we don't really know what our lives could be had we not taken on these toxins and put them into our body. Yeah. So it's just made these epigenetic changes that we can't seem to undo at this point. We can't undo them. All we can do is kind of move forward and sort of hope that we can change things in reverse because epigenetics, you can change your genetics environmentally through either positive or negative. But right now we're so saturated in the negative, it's like I don't see how, you can experience that a bit, but all you can do is try your best to reverse it and get well to the best of your ability, to the best of your potential. But and I don't know where I was going with this. What was your original question?
The awakening process. I was asking what have you learned about the awakening process that you didn't know when you started the show, and then we just went on a little bit of a tangent because I jumped on something you said and we just were talking about.
Right. Yeah. No, I think also that it was it was introspective and that it was individual. I think I thought that people could just be presented with the information and they would wake up.
Yeah,
and
that was huge for me too, and I was really like upset, and I was just like, why? And like, especially we talk about this quite a bit, like losing friends and people, you know, that you thought were your friends weren't your friends, and you're just like, why wouldn't you just look at the information that I gave you? And I would do that to them, you know.
Right.
If somebody came to me, I mean, I did that to you. Like, you know, you told, you know, showed me all this stuff, and you know, and I was like, I looked at it. I wasn't just like, that's conspiracy talk, and like,
no,
that's fucked up too. You think about somebody that you really call your friend. Who does it to your friend? Like, we had Matt Yonker on from the Vaccine Gamble, who writes he writes the blog Dinner for Thought. He's brilliant, brilliantly funny, brilliantly just great guy, and he was talking about like how his a guy that was, I forgot, he was either the best man at his wedding or he was the best man at the guy's wedding.
Both. They were each other's best men.
They were each other's best men. How, since he's taken the stance on vaccination, he just doesn't want to have anything to do with it anymore. And I was thinking about how sick and twisted is that? How do you not listen to somebody that you call your friend? Why is it your first instinct just to write them off? You know, why are you going to even look at the information that they're presenting to you? You know, what's wrong with you?
Yeah.
What kind of person are you? What kind of person does that? That's terrible. Even if you don't, because they even have some people that maybe they've looked at some of the information, they haven't gone as deep as I have with it. And some people actually have changed their mind, and some people still get vaccinated, you know, but they respect my opinion, and they respect what I'm doing, so they're not going to, they're still my friend. They're not going to be like, I can't talk to you anymore, you know, whatever. You know, and, you know.
It's true, yeah, it's right. So that was a big one for me, because I felt that I just didn't know. I just didn't have the proper schooling, and I didn't have the proper education growing up. That's why I wasn't awake at all times. But then I just figured that if I offered that information to other people, that they would be receiving of it. But people are not, you know, it's not like that. I don't think that. I guess one of the big paradigm shifts was that logic isn't, you know, people just they make decisions based on emotion more than they do on logic.
And they lie about using logic.
And they lie about using logic. And
to make their decisions when they really don't do that. It's good to have logic. I'm saying that, you know, it's needed. There's a place for it. But really, people don't. Just look at how, you know, the mainstream media plays. They say that they use logic, but they're always playing on people's fears and emotions. They're full of shit. You know?
Yeah, and then they see things through a reality tunnel. So they only see the things that they want to see. So then they can say, well, I'm using logic, but they're using logic based on just not even a third of, or even a quarter of the true story. You know, maybe just whatever it is, they cherry pick the information that they want that supports their argument, and then disregard everything else. And, you know, and quite frankly, people in the truth movement do this too. Yeah. And it's, you know, it's not just the mainstream media, but I've seen people in alternative media do this as well. And it's like, so, you know, there's something that, it's just a block. So I guess I thought, I just didn't know about that people didn't use logic. I kind of just assumed everybody would, and, you know, it would be all square, and we'd all figure this whole thing out, and that if I just presented, you know, this information to people, and you know, people just don't know about all the autistic kids. And now I don't think that that's the case at all. I think that they know and they don't care, or they just don't want to know, and they just choose not to know, and they choose to attack you if you say so. So if you say otherwise, so you kind of just gotta.
But they don't want to take responsibility, because I also have learned too. I would say that it's a huge responsibility when you know this. It's a huge responsibility in the sense that, once you know this stuff, you can't really unlearn it, and you have to. So then you're going to either live with knowing it and not saying anything, or have to say something, and then deal with the consequences of people who don't want to hear it. In addition to, but also you have to keep in mind that, you know, that there are people that you will help, you know, and that you will get through to, and that's why you keep doing it. Because even if it's like 1 or 2 out of 10, you're still like changing somebody's life for the better in tremendous ways, you know.
Yeah, and it's I guess well, I don't know, just part of like building a community and other people who are awake. You know, when you put yourself out there, you open yourself up to losing people, but you also open up yourself to creating a new community and creating people that are like-minded. And so then
amazing, wonderful, good-hearted, noble, intelligent, superhero-like people.
Right, exactly.
Yeah.
You know, and
no regrets.
Right, and then no regrets on it because you open yourself up to that, and then you can be surprised sometimes too by people who might be receptive to your information. You know, people that you may think were very straight-laced and yet they
and people might come back. People might wake up later. You know, people that you think are asleep, something happens to them, or they see something, or something that you post, you know, strike part of them, and they'll come back. They're like, "Oh my God," you know.
Yeah.
So.
Well, I think we're just about done with my end of the interview, so we are going to take a short break, and then I'm going to interview you.
Okay.
Virstyne Henry is my guest for today's last leg of the show. So everybody stay with us, because when we get back, Virstyne Henry, you're on stage.
Oh no! Oh snap!
All right, so stay tuned, guys.
Everything I'm looking at seems crazy. The newspaper, the television, nothing's right. Nothing's telling me what's true. It's like I fell into a bucket of cream and kicked my legs until I became a mouse. What's that about? I'm a conspiracy realist, not a conspiracy theorist. I want a t-shirt that represents me. What? There's one that's available? Go to shop.truthertease.com, says the voice in my head. Shop.truthertease.com. It's not crazy. I'm not afraid to go on the internet and go to shop.truthertease.com. I'm not scared. I've taken out bowling balls that look like you. That's what I said. Straighten out. Get your conspiracy realist t-shirt. Don't make me come over there. You look good. You look good.
Hey, y'all. Welcome back. Thanks for listening to Truth or Talk. It is our 100th episode today. And so I have today is it. You guys are with us. We're so happy to have you here. 100. It's quite an accomplishment. So, Virstyne.
April.
I listened to our first episode when I was preparing for this episode because, you know, we dove into it, as we said in the intro and everything, and we had, on our first episode, we talked a little bit about how we came up with the name for our show and all of that, and one of the things that you said was, like, you wanted there to be something about truth in there. You wanted to talk about, because that was going to be the premise of what we were going to be getting into. And we end every show, Peace, Truth, and Love. We always put the truth in there, make sure that is an important part. So what do you think the truth is? And do you believe that that you found truth?
What I believe the truth is, many things. Freedom, empowerment, truth. I'm just trying to think. Let me see. I would say for sure truth, empowerment and freedom. Because I found, since I have been in pursuit of the truth, that I have been able to become more empowered. And because of the information that I have come across has led me to become healthier, physically, mentally, I feel, has empowered me, has given me more of a purpose in life. And it's reignited my curiosity for life and history and science and how the world works and how people work. And yeah, and you asked, what, have I found truth?
Yes.
Oh, okay.
Found truth.
Have I found truth? I think that I found truth in some things. Mm-hmm. Some truths I'm still searching for. I was at a point where I was thinking about truth, and does the truth change with the perspective of a person? So, does each person have their own truth? Which I think that is true. Mm-hmm. for every person, that every person does have their own truth, but they think even outside of that, there's a truth that is common to human beings and how this planet works. You know, as well. So, the words were slipping my mind. Is there an objective truth, or is it subjective? So I think that there is an objective truth. I think there are subjective truths too, depending on the person and the situation. But I think that there are also objective truths, and I think that a lot of people try to avoid objective truths by only saying that they're subjective truths, and I don't think that that's right. You know,
so it's somewhere kind of in the middle. Yeah, there's.
Yeah, I mean, like I know, like we always talk about vaccines, but that's our foundation. That's the thing that woke us up, and that's one of the things that most fascinate us. But, you know, I was listening to one of the things that kind of turned me off these spiritual gurus. One of them that I used to listen to, and somebody asked them a question. They were like, "Oh, all of this, there's all this, you know, talk about vaccination, and should I do it or should I do it? And do you believe that, you know, it's, you know, I should vaccinate my child?" And their answer was basically that it was their interpretation of what they felt was the right decision for that. You know, like, well, if you believe that vaccinating your child is going to hurt them, then, you know, then you shouldn't vaccinate. But if you believe that it's safe, then you should, you know, then you should. And it's just like, that's such a bullshit answer to me. Because, you know, we talk about people that worship science, but science is real. But we talk about people that worship science in the sense that they use it as a religion, or they cherry pick what they want to make them right and to make them empowered and disempower other people. But when it comes to something like GMOs or vaccines and things that are going on in our environment and you know, that are being put in our bodies against our will and unwittingly, that, you know, the truth is that chemicals like mess us up. That's true. That's not subjective. That's objective. It's very like, you know, you inject, you know, we need water, we need minerals and certain vitamins to survive. We need certain things in our bodies and our environment to be healthy. And whether, you know, the chemicals that are being injected into us or put in our food and our air is making us sick is not subjective. That's objective, you know. Right. And then some of this other speculation, I think we were talking about this earlier, about with the symbolism and stuff, how some people read too much into symbolism. Right. And, you know, some of the stuff we can speculate on, but we're not going to know a lot of this stuff, you know, certain things that go on in Hollywood and celebrity. You know, we have our own ideas and theories about why people get killed or get killed themselves, but, you know, we don't know for sure. I don't think we'll ever know, and I really don't. I like to speculate, but I don't really, you know, think that it's going to really serve me to know the truth either way about what happened to some of these people. Right. All I know is the truth is something is weird. Something weird is going on in Hollywood. There's weird shit. There's people that have been connected to certain, you know, horrible, dehumanizing things such as, you know, child pedophilia and sacrifice. I believe that's true, but I don't, you know, as far as like certain individual stories about what happened to celebrities and stuff, I have my theories, but I don't think I'll ever really know the truth about that. And that's okay. That's fine. Yeah. You know.
Right. Yeah. You can have like a healthy skepticism, and then, but still not get to the whole bottom of everything. And it's funny. And you find people sometimes in the alternative media or in the truth movement, or, you know, so-called truthers or whatever, can even get kind of like angry with you when you say that you don't know or that you're unsure. They're like, but don't you see that this is what they're doing? Or, you know,
I do. And it's not important. I think that, like, what is that saying that goes, the devil's lost in the details. And somebody said to me that, you know, I don't need to know what color lipstick Jackie O was wearing when Kennedy got assassinated. All I need to know is that our government is corrupt and they lied to us. That's it. you know?
Yeah.
Like, I don't
Yeah,
really, I don't know, I haven't done a lot of research into 9/11. I just know that our government had something to do with it. I just know that the official story was a lie. But that's really all I need to know as far as, you know, as that's concerned. I don't really need to know the details, you know? Because, A, that's not going to really convince anybody, you know? And B, for myself, it's not going to really, I don't feel like it's going to serve me. I think we go deep into vaccines and medical stuff because we see how that personally affects us, how it affects my health. Yeah. It actually has helped me improve my asthma. And certain illnesses that I've had. It's definitely just knowing that vaccine causes certain things, knowing how, when you know what causes something, you can figure out a cure for it. And also to explain to a lot of people, just to shut them the hell up, though, too, sometimes, because, you know, they, I've noticed, too, the more I know about this topic, the more it actually kind of saves me. When I actually have to talk to somebody about it, and, you know, I have all this information, I can just go on, and they can't say anything. They're just like, oh, well, you know, it's so funny. I was at a party not too long ago. I was at a baby shower. And I have this guy who's my mom's best friend's husband, who's an amazing guy, and he, like, dragged me over to meet this lady, and he was like, Virstyne knows a lot about vaccines, and, you know, you need to listen to her, and this is a lady that's older than me, and she was, I guess she worked in some, she was like some kind of scientist or worked in a lab or something. I forgot exactly what she did. And she, you know, she posed a few things, and I was just able to shut them down with the knowledge that I had. And all she can say, she was just like, well, you just keep learning. I was like, I will. Thank you. Thanks a lot.
Yeah.
You know.
Yeah, that's the kind of thing you just copy and paste. You just keep learning.
Yeah, totally. You know, it's just like, oh, well, you know, and so. And also in knowing that I'm not buying into propaganda, when I knew, and I knew that's what I did before, you know, because I would, you know, when I would, in my head, I would think about, I was like, well, I don't understand why parents wouldn't vaccinate their kids. And, you know, but whatever, to each his own. You know, but I didn't really, you know, and I was running under the assumption that the doctors that have given us this information were educated and were well intended, and that the things that we were seeing on TV were by people that had our interests in mind and that weren't funded by, you know, the pharmaceutical industry and didn't have their own agenda. And I was under the assumptions of that, you know. I was under the assumption of that, I should say, but yeah.
Right. Now it's funny how, you know, people they're so trusting of these industries that are run by pharmaceutical companies and by government and stuff like that, like as if politicians ever have your best interest, you know. And I just, when you were talking about that idea came to mind. And speaking of that. Listening to our first episode, and I hope this isn't embarrassing for you, but this was one of the huge things of your awakening at the time that we were talking about was Obama. You were Obama.
Yeah. I feel like this is your life. Right?
Yeah. This is your life. So that was one of the things that you admitted was a huge part of your awakening. In 2008, his election, you were a big Obama fan, and you know, had all of that. And then when you started to realize that he was just another puppet on a string.
Oh my God! And they got me good, man. They got me good.
Yeah. And so I guess, you know, how did that feel? Like, how difficult was it to sort of come to see that for what it was, and how much was it like kind of earth-shattering for you, and did you know, and an intricate part of your awakening?
Oh, yeah. So I remember even before I was awake, I got, not that I'm awake on everything, but you know what I mean? Back in the day when I was asleep. I had an argument with a friend, and we were talking about Obama winning the Nobel Peace Prize. And she was like, don't you think that it's weird that he won for nothing? Like, he didn't do anything. And I was like, duh, he's Obama. Like, that's how brainwashed I was, you know? And I think a lot of people, black and non-black, you know, saw it as a symbol of us getting past racism. And I think everybody, just about every person innately knows that racism is bullshit. I think everybody, not just black people, want it to be done with.
Yeah, sure.
So I think when he got elected, man, I remember running out on my balcony. I ran down the hall, and there was this lady that was jumping up and down too. I didn't even know her, but we just start hugging each other and crying. Like, it was just crazy, you know? And I remember I would drive around in my car singing the Will I Am Yes We Can song and playing it on repeat. Like, I was like gone. You know, because he's really, you know, now that I look back at it, I was really falling for his charm and his, he was fine as hell too. Like, I'm not going to deny that. I wasn't attracted to him, you know, but, and you know, and they planned it that way. They're not going to have an ugly dude, like, you know, charming Gwen, and, you know, and, you know, to pretending to care and not really listening to what he's saying, and also very well spoken, but not really, you know, and confusing that with somebody that's intelligent, you know, and also it being, in a sense, me wanting to prove racist people wrong, you know. And I think for my parents, it's been really hard because my mom grew up in Jim Crow era. And my dad didn't grow up in the South, but he grew up, you know, in Denver, where there was still a lot of racism, even though, you know, places were integrated. There still were a lot of, like, racism that people got away with. You know, he had a uncle that was, like, lynched because he moved to an all-white town and he could afford it, and they told him to get out. He's like, I'm staying right here. They're like, get out, boy. And, like, you know, basically suicided him, hung from his tree and said that he killed himself, but we know that's not true. That wasn't true. So, I mean, there are a lot of emotions, you know, that are tied up with the election of Obama and, you know, him being the first black president. And I think, you know, a lot of black people also have in their head that when we make small steps like this, having a first black president, having a black scientist like Neil deGrasse Tyson, even though he's a dick, and he's not smart. But honestly, I think I would have to admit that I would say that I was just amazed at seeing a black dude that was like a scientist, that was well spoken. Right. You know, because people see people like that as kind of like tokens, kind of like points, right? And they're like, hey man, oh look at this, we got a president, we got a scientist. We got, you know, the first black actress to win the Oscar. You know, we're coming up. When they're not really looking at the whole system of racism and how it's designed to divide and conquer, and how we're not going to get over racism by small steps like that. It's bigger. It's a bigger issue than that. So the thing that woke me up about Obama is, you know, I hate war. I love children. I love people, you know, first and foremost too. And I remember it was this random guy, and it's, you know, it's really cool because I would say it's very important to speak your mind and speak your truth, because you never know who you're going to affect and you never know who you're going to meet. And this guy, you know, and we were at the McDonald's of all places. I don't even eat there anymore. But we were talking, and he, you know, he wanted to practice his English with me, and this older guy, we were talking, and then in the middle of conversation, he was like, why are you in Libya? And I went, what? What do you mean, man? We're giving freedom to... I'm like, man, that's kinetic action, man. That's not a war. You know, all this fucking shit that, you know, you're just brainwashed with. And I don't know, he just really struck a chord in me, because he just really seemed very saddened and disappointed in America and Obama. And I could just, you know, I can see it in his eyes. I honestly, it was the strangest thing. He just like looked at me and he was just stern and straight and just like, you know, not even in the most perfect English, but I can just be like, so it really got me to look into that and see where he was coming from, and it just woke me up. And then, you know, honestly, since then I felt like I've grown in the sense that I try to look at a person as a person and what they do, and I don't really, I mean, I know that race does play a factor in the society. I'm not denying that, but I felt like once I kind of broke through that paradigm that I'm not going to give anybody excuses because of their race. And not that I really did that before, but I would say not giving them excuses, but, God, what's the word? Yeah, maybe, okay, you know what, I take that back. I would say maybe make excuses for them because of their race or because I like them, you know. Yeah. And, or, you know, because I think a lot of people do that on either, you know, white and black people. I think white and black people all do that too when they're kind of tied up in their emotional racism, racism baggage or whatever, you know. That they tend to do that, and they think that if they speak out against it, it makes them a bad person or a sellout, you know. And I know a lot of black people too that were probably afraid to speak up against stuff Obama did, you know, because they would be, you know, they want to be called sellouts, you know, and they don't want to admit that they were wrong. And, you know, they also, like I said, like the whole racism thing, they feel like their baggage, their whole kind of idea of getting over racism is shattered because the one person that they thought can make a difference didn't, and in fact is working with the quote-unquote man to see further. Right. So, you know, but I think it also gave me the confidence to be more outspoken, and I felt like once I spoke out on Obama, I felt like I could really speak out on anything. And even to this day, even though my mom will listen to some of this stuff, like she has a definitely emotional block with Obama, you know, and like we can't even talk about it. Right. And my cousin too. My cousin and I, you know, she's awake. My cousin's really awake on most other stuff, but we just like, Mama, like that's that block. At least I love her and I respect her because she has the decency to respect me for my opinion, and I respect her for hers. I don't think that I wouldn't consider her an unintelligent person because she doesn't, you know, she still supports Obama, you know, and what he's doing. But it's also helped me to understand too why a lot of Jewish people are so pro-Israel, what they're doing, because I see that they're wrapped up in the same thing. They're wrapped up in the same kind of like, you know, they tie Israel to freedom, to the fact that they've been emotionally oppressed. When in fact you really look at it, everybody is, you know, discriminated against in one way or another. The awakening of Obama has also helped me to understand why a lot of my Jewish friends are so pro-Israel without even looking at the evidence. They're caught up in the thing that they're caught up in the idea that and it's true. I'm not saying that it's not true, but you know, people discriminate against Jewish people and say shitty things about Jewish people. But guess what? We all do. We all say shitty things about each other, and everybody says shitty things about us. And I think that's the huge elephant in the room, the big secret of divide and conquer that nobody ever really analyzes or talks about. You know, that everybody thinks that they're being discriminated against. Nobody has had it worse than them or their ancestors, you know. And because of that, people owe them something. Right. Because of that, whatever they do or their people do can do no wrong. They can do no wrong because they're just reacting to the discrimination that they're being, you know, subjected to.
Right. Yeah, and you can really see how when you explain that whole situation with, you know, the hanging and the Jim Crow laws and all that. How it would be really hard to not. I mean, if you're looking at it from that perspective during that time when you're dealing with these types of Jim Crow laws and things, you're thinking not that there's ever going to be a black president, and then here you have one. But then I guess that goes into the whole idea of like, what really is the government, and so no matter who's in office, does it even really matter? So.
Yeah, and that woke me up too. But I needed to go through that because I honestly think, I mean, I voted for him the first term, but not the second term. But I honestly think, had I not gone through that, I wouldn't have woken up to the false left paradigm as fast as I did. Because, like you said, it doesn't matter who's in office. And watch, the same thing's going to happen with Hillary. They're going to play the feminist card. You know, a lot of women that have been discriminated against, as I have in some cases as well, but just for being a woman. But, you know, they're going to play the fucking, sexist card. Oh, well, and they're already starting to do it. You see slowly through commercials and, you know, being a girl, and you've been told that you can't do, you know, what you want to do because you're a girl. And, you know, so then, you know, they have Harry Potter girl, what's her face, Emma Watson, making speeches, and Scarlett Johansson coming out, and, you know, and it would be great to see a woman president, but at the same time, not if that woman is like Darth Vader, you know? Right. You think Darth Vader should be a woman? You think every villain, you know, in science fiction, they're prominent characters. Should they be women, you know?
Right. Yeah, it's true. I know. And the whole idea that, well, you know, women are less violent, so therefore, you know, we have women in office. Really? I know, right? I mean, but any time that there have been women in power, they've all gone to war. I mean, you can't even think of any time. You know, I was telling this to somebody, and he was like, well, that was before, you know, we had the industrial age of you know, and then we were all just about war. And I'm like, really? Joan of Arc? You know, I mean, Queen Elizabeth I. I mean, you know, this is all way long time ago, way before, and they all go to war. So there's no evidence to show that women are less violent in nature. They might be less likely to put themselves in harm's way, but they're certainly not less likely to, like, start wars and make other people, you know, hurt other people. So I don't really see any evidence of that at all, but you know, and certainly that doesn't seem to matter by race either. It's like it's just an individual person thing. So I guess that's going into another big part, I guess, that I talked about. I'm sorry.
Yeah, that absolutely. I also think that, you know, I did have this idea because he was a person of color, he was with brown skin, that he would understand the plight of people of color and will be less likely to go to war. And I know I'm not the only person that had that sentiment as well.
Sure.
You know, but they'll just be like, oh, well, he would be peaceful, and that's why he got the Peace Prize. But yet he's created more wars since he's been in office. You know, and they've changed the terminology. I mean, I learned a lot. I learned about semantics. I learned a lot about, like, the false left right paradigm, about my own baggage that I had to really examine and let go. You know, it helped me to understand the, like I said, the why there's so many people that are pro Israel. I don't think they're bad people. I know they're people that probably fucking hate me because I think Israel's evil, just like the U.S. You know, I don't think the people of Israel are evil. I don't think, you know, the people of the United States are evil, but I think that their governments are no better than any other governments, and, you know, and I think it forced me to examine the huge game of divide and conquer. And I think that, I think that physically looking white people in society are more privileged. Even lighter-skinned black people, I would say, have more privilege sometimes, but that's how you play the game. You have to make one side more privileged and another side underprivileged, so there's growing there's growing hate and resentment toward each other, you know, and guilt on one side because they know that they are privileged, you know, and they, you know, so, I mean, that's how you play off the tension between each other. I mean, talking about things like that, that's really what's going to help us get rid of racism once and for all. Not by just selecting one person. You know.
Yeah, and you can really see how the media likes to play on that. I saw there was this model, and she's an overweight model. They have the full figured models these days, and she's a big girl, and she's you know, blowing up, like, apparently she's famous in all these magazine covers, and I'd never heard of her until I saw this report where she made a comment that black men love her. And so she got all this, like, hate tweets and all these things about how, you know, she's a racist bitch and da-da-da-da-da. And she had to apologize and everything. And I saw the comments on the article, and it was mostly black men that were like, I don't find that racist. You know, like why?
Yeah, I know.
You know,
people have a limited vocabulary too.
Yeah.
Like anything that offends them, they'll just be like, "That's racist." My friend and I were making a joke about that too, about how people can't really find the words to really accurately describe certain things, so they'll just say that they're racist.
Yeah.
You know, they'll just be like, "Oh, well, this pen doesn't work. It's racist." Or, you know what I mean? Like, if they're just upset about something, they don't like. They can say that that's maybe racist. Wouldn't it be? They can be that's very limiting in your thoughts, or that's very, you know. I don't even see how it's even discriminatory. You know, it's very biased. Maybe that's
or it's a stereotype or whatever. But if that's what she's experienced, if she's gone, you know, she finds that black men hit on her more than white guys, then that's her experience. She's just saying that they like her. But most of the guys were like, well, it's kind of true. I mean, you know, black guys do tend to not care as much about, you know, being overweight. White guys are a little more hung up on that. And so there's nothing really racist about it. It just kind of is an observation. So, but it's the whole divide and conquer thing, just to make it a big deal and fuss over it and get all crazy on it. And it's like, who cares? You know, it's such a thing that doesn't deserve media attention.
Yeah, for real. I was talking about the other day too. I was talking to somebody the other day about how, you know, the people can focus on really like menial stuff that's not even worthwhile, like the Confederate flag thing. We're talking about like how, you know, that a lot of people in this generation probably doesn't even understand the significance of the Confederate flag. You know, yet they're making people like hate it and causing tension over a flag. Which, I mean, if I'm black, I don't care. If people want to fly that, fly it. I want to, you know, I don't think you're necessarily a racist because you're flying it, and B, who fucking cares? I want to know who the racists are. That's always been my stance, you know? So what? So you know not to go to their house, or you know not to go to give them business, you know?
Yeah. It's true, and if you think about it in terms of how the governments have always come in and sort of robbed people of their culture in order to, I guess, you know, take away their history and things that they might have pride about. People in the South might just have pride about their history, even if there are certain things that are dark and bleak. Well, that's certainly true of all of American history. Hello. You know, it's like, how many things have we gone to war over?
Oh, my God, like how people should ban the American flags in their countries.
Exactly.
Like, we killed so many people, you know?
Precisely. Like, even you could say that our American flag, or the American flag that we have now as our main symbol, is actually more offensive in a lot of ways.
Yeah.
It's killed more people than the Confederates did.
Yeah.
So, but as far as, you know, maybe there's the South that's just part of their heritage. Whether or not it's something to be proud of is a matter of opinion, but that's part of their heritage. So it's something that, you know, by not looking at it, you're really not taking away racism at all, are you?
No, you're not. You're making it worse, really, you know. And, I mean, of course we know that's the plan. They want to get us fighting or keep us fighting. But, I mean, that's just, you know, that's bullshit. And people get so butthurt, too. Like, I know, right? Like, if somebody says nigger, like, I'll say it. Like, I don't like to be called nigger. And I wouldn't let anybody call me anything degrading, but I'm saying it on the air. I'm gonna say the word. I'm not gonna be like the N-word. Who cares? You know? Yeah. Yes, words are powerful. Yes, symbols are powerful, but they're only as powerful as you give them the power, or what am I trying to say? They're only as powerful as you let them be powerful toward you.
Yeah.
So I mean, you know, it's just so, like, and it's so funny because I know some people that are white, and when we talk about, like, using the word nigger and stuff, you know, I can see them in conversations, though, like, they're, like, sweating. They're just, like, I can see them, like, going through it in their head. Should I say nigger? Should I say the N-word? Should I, like... You know, like, and the fact that they're even, like, sweating about it, like, just shows me that they're not racist, you know, if they're you know, like, they don't want to be offensive.
No,
I've heard, you know, I've other people that I've talked to, if we talk about racism and stuff, they're being politeful by saying the N-word, but, you know, it's like people can't make that distinction between being called something derogatory or referring to to a word when using an example about something. Just the same thing as like retarded. We say retarded all the time, but I know that there are people that are like, oh, that's offensive. You know, my son is mentally handicapped or has autism or mentally, you know, and they can't make the distinction between, I would never refer to a mentally handicapped person or child as retarded. But I feel like I can say the word. It means that you're slow thinking, you're a slow person.
Yeah.
You know, I'm not
retarded just means delayed. It just means like and then you're behind the curve a little bit. But it doesn't, it's less offensive than disabled, because that doesn't imply in any way that you can actually catch up. Retarded just means, well, you're behind, and so, you know, it kind of implies that maybe you can actually catch up. So people assign their emotional meaning to it, you know, because they think, oh, I was bullied. I was called retarded in school, and to make fun of me, You know,
get a fucking journal, like, get over it.
Well, I mean, just, you know, don't be so butthurt, like you said. Like, people just they take it so personal. They take a lot of things very, very personal, and it's not. It's like it doesn't have anything to do with you, homie. Mm-hmm. Like, it's just, you know, it's just what it is. And so, and I remember a lot of that was going down with that whole Bundy Ranch thing a little while ago. Remember that? And then that guy came out and made those comments, and people were getting all butthurt about what he said. It came off kind of racist, but then it wasn't. I think you had an opinion about that, or you made a video about that. Do you remember the Bundy Ranch standoff thing?
Oh, I didn't. And somebody else that made a video about it. But I think he was talking about like blacks were like dependent on the government and stuff, or something like that. It wasn't even that bad.
No, it wasn't even that bad.
And I think statistically it's still white people, last time I checked, that are. But, I mean, there are a lot of blacks, and there are a lot of blacks that do use that. You know, he's right about that. I don't know, like, what the percentages are, but there are a lot of blacks who use that, and I think that, you know, but they're made to, you know, be dependent. This is this whole system. It's just bigger. But I think they were focusing on that because they were trying to, you know, paint him as this hardcore, like, staunch racist. I think he was just a little bit, maybe a little bit ignorant. I don't think he was a racist. I think of somebody that thinks that they're supreme over other races than their own. Yeah. And that's it. Whether they're psychotic, whether they're killing people because of it, or whether that's just their train of thought. Because you can still be a racist and not be a psychopath. Like when you see people that were, you know, lynching people and hanging them from trees and tarring them, they're fucking psychopaths. Yeah. That's like, you know, most racist people, they're not violent. They're not like vindictive like that. They're just ignorant as hell. Right. You know, but they're not like that. So I think there's a difference, and I think people need to learn to make the distinctions between the differences of people like that. But I think that they were trying to, there was another lady, I don't know her name, she has a following. She was black, and she made a really cool video basically talking about people were getting their panties in a bunch, you know, and talking about how she felt the media was trying to paint him as a staunch racist, when the real issue was that, you know, they were basically trying to take over his land. And, you know, that the people around him stuck up to them, which is great, which is wonderful, you know, but the concern should have been that the government tried to take his land over, you know, something that they shouldn't have been taking his land over. Yeah, they always like use these highly emotional hot button issues, which is, you know, racism or vaccines or whatever, to distract from the truth of what's going on in this situation. Like, you know, who's really the oppressor in this situation, this Bundy guy or the government just trying to take away his land? And, you know, when you say the standoff, did you know that our producer Vince was one of those guys that was on the horse? Oh, no! Yeah. You rock, Vince! Mwah! Yeah. Yep, Vince. So, yeah. You have some cojones. Right? Yeah, that's awesome. I would have been like in the shack in the back with the gun, but I don't know if I would have been like right at the front. With the horse? That's awesome. I know. Yeah, that's sweet. But, and so I guess I think you asked me this question, but since we started, what do you think has changed most in your awakening? Oh, I feel like I don't want to be copying you, but I would say for sure the fact that I thought that people would once you present them information, that they would just look at it and be like, oh, I get it now. And just, like, wake up, And then maybe my definition of awakening has changed, too, because I think it varies, and I think that people are awake on different levels, including me. I mean, I'm open to admit that maybe, I don't know everything, and there's a lot that I still need to learn,
Sure. Yeah.
But, one thing I guess that surprised me, too, I'm like, I thought if one person was awake on 9/11, that they would be awake on vaccines, and if they would be awake on vaccines, they would be awake on, CPS, or,
right.
chemtrails, or, the false left-right paradigm, or, just other things like that.
Yeah, that surprised me, too. That people weren't, you figure if somebody was awake, because you'd see how all these things are so
connected,
that you kind of find it hard to, when I went down the rabbit hole, I literally saw it as like things connecting. Like I in my mind, that was the visual that I got.
Yeah.
Once it kind of like hit me, I went, oh, there's this and this and this. And it was like a web. Everything was sort of connecting to each other. And so when I realized other people didn't connect with that, because that was one of the areas, I think we both talked about, when you lose friends, sometimes it's because they might be awake on one issue or they're with you on this, and so you're going, yeah, and then what about this? And then they're like, what? You're crazy. I don't want to be, I hate you. And I had that case as far as the vaccine issue. Someone was pretty awake on that, but then wasn't awake on 9/11, so she blocked me on Facebook and never spoke to me again. And I'm going, whoa, that's weird. I mean, but
and to me that's more obvious.
Yeah,
that's just like
right.
That's like Truther 101. It's 9/11 for real, because I think that's really start waking a lot of people up, and this is what a lot of people also too describe the elite as really messing up, because it actually woke up more people than they thought. And because I've heard a lot of people say that from their end it was a huge mistake, because it actually made people more conscious and more aware about things going on in the world that they had intended, because it was just so sloppy and so obvious. If you really look, if you can get from under the umbrella of believing that the government has your best interest in mind, and just look at the basics of the official story and just see how nothing makes sense and how ridiculous it is.
Right. Yeah, and it's the whole Building 7 thing. It's so obviously a planned demolition. So if you know about that at all, then because I think at one point not a lot of people knew.
What do you mean Building 7? I'm going to block you.
Exactly. Yeah. People knew there was a third tower, and then when you realize that it went down, most people are like, there's no way that it could have been anything but a controlled demolition. It's just impossible, based on just physics and, but some people, they have an emotional block on that, maybe because they take it personal for some reason. Maybe they had family involved, and it just hurts too much to think that their family members were deliberately murdered, but they were. So, but I don't know. It's a painful thing when you say that your awakening process. There was a time when it was kind of when it hurt, where you maybe cried over a little bit and kind of had to get through some of that.
Maybe more ice cream than I should have. to cope with the emotional pain. And so you asked me though. You were asking me, or just saying that?
No, I'm asking you. Did you were you depressed? Did you feel scared?
I really was for a while, especially since I was living in a different country, and I also had this I don't know where I got this from, but I just had this idea that if I moved to a different country, I didn't move to a country to be around people who I thought would be awake, but when I moved to a different country, I thought that I would be moving around people that were open-minded, meaning that they would be open-minded, they would have an open mind to new ideas and new thoughts and new ways of thinking about things, which really isn't the case. And what I ran into were a lot of people who I would maybe consider to be, what is that word that you use, narcissistic, altruistic, or...
pathological altruism.
Pathological altruism in some sense. So the fact that they, they moved to this other country to be like, oh, I lived in another country, and they can, pretend to be like this worldly person that really cares, but they're really self-indulgent in themselves, and still didn't really make any efforts to get to know the culture. Right. But took pictures just to make it look like they were learning the culture, if that made sense. Absolutely, but they would talk shit about the culture, about the Taiwanese people, while in their presence, just being very closed-minded. Anyway, so I thought, though, because I thought I was moving to a place where people would be more open-minded, that I could be open about these ideas. And it ended up isolating me from a lot of people that I worked with. And then I realized that a lot of the American people that I work, or native English people that I work with at, and the group of people where I was in, so I was kind of lonely for a while. And, I had some Taiwanese friends, but still, I didn't really know Chinese that well, and, their English wasn't the best, so I couldn't even describe a lot of these ideas and thoughts that I was having to them. And I had one Taiwanese friends that I wake, and I swear, I asked the universe, I was like, please, I hope, send me some artistic people, some creative people that are open-minded. I swear within a week, I met my music partner that I'm collaborating with now, and I met another friend of mine, who I've adopted as my little sister, Alice. Her name's Alice. Yeah. So she was very awake too, and it was interesting because she became awake after she moved outside of Taiwan, so I would also say it was very frustrating for me, because I think, as far as I know, as far as the people that I talk to, and I'm sure that maybe if I knew the language better, that I would maybe run into people that were more, that were more awake, so to speak. But from my experience, I just observed that a lot of Taiwanese people were very asleep. They were very complacent, that they were very, trying to do everything that America did and didn't want to question anything. They just did what they're told, and that's kind of in their culture, too, from what I've been told by other Taiwanese people and from what I saw with my own eyes, that they are just very, they do what they're told. They don't question anything. And just stay in line. Don't step outside of the box. And if you do, you're crazy, you're a troublemaker, and you're pretty much isolated. So I felt like there were very few people that I can talk to this stuff about at the time. And, for a while I was a bit depressed and sad. Well, I don't know, it was weird. I was kind of depressed and sad, but at the same time I was just so curious, and I felt like I had this insatiable appetite to learn and research things that I haven't had since I was a child. So at the same time, while I was sad and depressed in some instances, I was also able to counter that by just throwing myself into my research or learning the language or doing things like that. There was a guy that I actually also met too. He didn't work at my branch. We were at different branches, but he was from Canada, and we would talk about a lot of the stuff. I don't know if he was awake on the vaccine medical issue. We didn't really talk about that stuff. We talked more about stuff that America was doing and things like that.
Well, it's interesting. I'm just kind of noticing this at this point in this show, that it seems like the biggest awakenings that we both had weren't really about what the elite was doing. It was more about interpersonal relationships with the rest of us, our friends, and we kind of got we got to know people either for better or worse in our inner circles, and kind of learning more about ourselves. It's kind of interesting, don't you think?
And I think that's one of the things that prevents people from waking up, so to speak, because they'd have to do that introspection, and it's hard. It's not really easy. It's worth it. It definitely has its payoff once you kind of get over that hump, and it's constant too. It's something that you continuously have to do. But I think getting through the first level of it is the hardest. But once you break through that, it becomes easier. It doesn't ever stop, because I think if it ever stops, then you never grow. You stay stunted. So I guess you can actually go through and kind of stunt if you don't want to grow anymore. But then you're never looking inside yourself, and you're never asking questions, and then it gets kind of boring. You know?
It does. I call that kind of like a one note. You know, you can wake up on one thing, but then you never take it any deeper or make any other deeper connections. And really, if you don't look at yourself. But it was just, it just struck me that we were talking about. It was like we seem to break more stereotypes about other people and go through, you just assumed that these people, because they were traveling to Taiwan and doing what you were doing, and that you were doing it to learn more about the culture and becoming more worldly. And so you assumed that other people would be doing the same. That's kind of your image of what they were, but then it was like fake for a lot of people. They were just posting pictures on Facebook.
They're fake, and they wanted cheaper rents, and they wanted,
right,
they wanted to seem worldly when I didn't think they were, and they were just, I don't know, man. Just
like some covert racism, too, because they were kind of acting like they're so liberal and enlightened, but secretly, then they're like talking smack about the Taiwanese people and like judging their culture, even though they've barely been there.
I say that, and to a certain point, I think you have a right to do that because they definitely have their opinions about us. I think you have opinions about people, where you go and where you live and stuff, but just to the point where, I remember this one guy that he would say shit in front of them, like right there, and I'd be like, they can hear you. And he just assumed just because their English wasn't perfect that they didn't understand what he was saying. But I'm like, they understand what you're saying. Like, they have feelings. Like, show some respect,
And they're not even really, some of them it sounds like weren't even really trying to get to know the culture, but then yet they're able to judge it. So that was kind of interesting. So another thing that you brought up just now about your insatiable curiosity and your appetite for knowledge, and when I was listening to our first interview and we were talking to each other, you said it was an addiction. You were addicted to the information. Are you still?
Yes. Yes, of course. But it's fun, and I think that I've also, through how it's changed my life and also just looking at other people, I feel that people don't really have a purpose, though. They don't have anything that excites them, I mean, there are people that have their jobs, there are people that do things that they're supposed to do, and, maybe they have to do a lot of research or they have to do, put a lot of work into something, but it's something that they're getting paid to do because they need a job, not because it's something that they like to do. And then I didn't like watching TV anymore, really. I just really lost a lot of my, lost a lot of my love for movies and I mean, I still like movies. I'm not saying I hate all movies, but I just, just looking at the mainstream media and the stories that they're putting out. But even before that, I'd honestly have to say, as an artist, I was already beginning to lose my interest because I just felt like they were recycling the same types of stories over and over again. Just maybe once in a while they might change the race of people or the different looking people, but it was just the same thing.
Right. It's true. They just keep reading.
Yeah, and out of all the documentaries that we had, or that we've watched, I look at a lot of them and just be like, wow, there's so many narratives that can come from this information, but yet the same types of stories are being recycled. That's keeping people that's basically keeping the status quo the way it is today. Yeah, but not like in the sense of stress. In the sense of soul years, if that makes sense. I don't feel like I'm physically more stressed out. I feel like I'm actually less. It's weird. I would say that I feel like physically, maybe, energetically, I've regressed. Because I feel like I have more energy and more excitement for life and people and knowledge. Where I feel like with people that are my age today, they're really lethargic and depressed and bitter and, in that sense. So, but in a sense, in a soul sense, I feel like that I've matured and gotten older because it's really, because of the introspecting that I had to do. Or introspection I had to do. Which I think everybody in society should do some form of it, whether it's fucking, I don't know, whatever. I mean, there are many different ways that you can do that, but I think for me, this is one of the best ways to do and continue to do.
Yeah, for reals. I think that's one of the things that we talk the most about is being awake. You know, when we ask that question, what does it take to be awake? And I think that's the one thing that we know for sure is that it takes introspection and curiosity and some guts, you know, to stand up for yourself and stand up for your beliefs.
Cojones.
Yeah, exactly. Some cojones. So I think we did it. We're just about out of time here. So any last parting words for our 100th episode?
Oh, my God. Let's just see where the rest of these episodes are going to take us. I can't wait for our next round of interviews, and hopefully we can improve our sound, and we're working on that. It's just we're not tech savvy, and we've had to not apologize.
Haven't had the
and
to get more knowledgeable about that stuff, but working on it. It's a work in progress. You learn on the job a little bit.
For sure, and so we're doing that, and I can't wait for our next round of interviews. Like I said, I can't wait to see how we're going to grow even more in a positive way, and the people that we're going to come across, and yeah,
right. And how it just is going to evolve in new projects. I mean, we don't even really know, because I think a lot of it, what surprises me is maybe things were surprising. I didn't really know where this was going to go. We know it, like we said at the beginning. Did we think we were going to have a 100th episode? Not really. We just kind of just went in and did it, and I didn't think of an end or a goal. It just was kind of something to do. So now here we are, and I can't wait till we have more interviews. And it's been really a good way to spend my time and doing this job with my best friend. And
I'm smiling, but you guys can't see it. there's a little tears in my eyes.
Even better.
But you can't see it.
Yeah, we've known each other for a long time, but we certainly, I think, have gotten to know each other better as doing this project.